Hi, my name's Ian, and this is part 2 of the How to Stay Porn-Free in Lockdown series. Let's be honest, COVID, isolation, quarantine, it's all just made it a whole lot harder for any of us to live healthy lives, to live wisely, make great choices for ourselves. And if you're struggling with pornography, then it is even more difficult at this sort of time. And so here are some real practical tips, some simple things that you can start to put in place or think about that are going to help you stay porn-free during lockdown. We're going to jump into those real soon. But in this video, we have 2 of 6 tips. If you want to see all 6 tips now, you don't want to wait until the 3rd video, then actually you can download a PDF that we've done that's totally free. You just download it and you'll see all 6 tips. These videos are going to go a little bit deeper. We're going to put a little bit more information in the videos, but if you want to jump ahead, why don't you go to the description, click on that link and we'll email you a PDF. Other thing I'd love you to do before we jump into this content is to click subscribe. Yeah, I know it's what all YouTubers say, click subscribe, but actually it's really helpful and it's really important. Let me tell you why it's helpful really quickly. One, it's going to help you know when we've got more content, and there's going to be a lot of new content that we are planning over this next 12 months. On this channel, we want to help you defeat and defend against porn in your life or in someone else's life. And so to help you do that, we're going to be giving you videos like this one that will have practical tips, but also we're going to do interviews with people who know what it's like, have been there, and they're going to give you some inspiration and some ideas. And also, as well as interviews, we're going to do reviews. So we're going to have review videos on books, on resources, on apps, so that you can find the right stuff, the right information, the right resource to help you stay porn-free or help somebody else. So that's why I want you to click subscribe, because it's going to help you, but also it will help someone else, someone you don't even know. Because when you engage with a video, if you click on subscribe, if you put something in a comment section, if you click like, whatever it is, it will actually help YouTube know that this video is helping people. And so what they'll do is they'll stick it in front of somebody else. So if there's somebody who perhaps hasn't found us, doesn't know about Naked Truth, but is looking for help and looking for this kind of content, because you've subscribed, because you've liked a video, YouTube will recommend it. And so some people who would never find us might find us if you subscribe. So help yourself, help somebody else, and click subscribe. Okay, so we're going to jump into some content now, and we're going to look at 2 practical things that you can be doing, or 2 tips that you can be thinking about. And there's a bunch of practical things under each of those tips. So the first one are some tips around health. Now, this is a lot to do with the brain in this session. Now, the brain, as you know, is a complicated and amazing thing. Our brains, we're only just starting to understand. And one of the things that we are beginning to understand is the way that pornography, online pornography in particular, because it's a super stimuli, the way it affects the brain and the reward system in the brain. Your reward system is something that goes into action when you do something that sustains life, like eat food or exercise, or create new life, like have sex. The reward system is functioning when those things take place. And one of the things it does is it releases dopamine. Maybe you've heard dopamine. It's a chemical in our brain that when we receive it, it makes us feel good, but also it makes us remember things and crave things. So all this release of chemicals, and dopamine is included in that, in our reward system, is what gives us a bit of a buzz, gives us a bit of a high, but also gives us cravings. Now, that can be a natural thing when it comes to eating or exercise, but it becomes unnatural and unhealthy when we introduce porn to our brain, because our brain doesn't know that it's online porn, but what it gets is this unnatural release of dopamine, and that can lead to problems like escalation and tolerance, and even a dependency and addiction, massive highs but also deep lows. And this is all stuff that's happening with our brains. Now, I've put in the description a few different videos that unpack that a little bit more. One of those is a video we did with a friend of ours, Paula Hall. Paula Hall is a psychotherapist, maybe one of the UK leading experts in porn and sex addiction. And we did a video together called The Road to Brighton. And it's her explaining, we've put some illustrations in as well, what dopamine does to the brain when we look at porn and what we can do about that. So that will go into a little bit more detail. Definitely worth checking that video. But here are some things you can do during lockdown that are going to help you have a natural and healthy dopamine release, an alternative to pornography. So here are a few things, and they might sound like common sense, but as we've said before, common sense doesn't always mean common action. So just because you know this stuff doesn't mean you're putting it into place. So this is just a reminder, this is a refresher, and maybe a little bit of a nudge to try and do these things a bit more to help you stay porn free during lockdown. So one is to do with exercise. Exercise is great for our brains. In fact, it's exercise that is one of the best things you can do for your brain. It increases the production of new brain cells, it improves our mood and our mental health. You probably heard politicians talking about how important exercise is for our mental health during lockdown. We need exercise, not just to stay fit physically, but for our brains as well. So if you're trying to quit porn, it might seem strange, but actually an exercise routine is going to be a key fight against your porn use. And so do that, because you're going to get natural dopamine release. Yeah, you're going to get out of breath, but you're actually going to get some of that dopamine being released, and that is going to become a healthy thing that you begin to crave and you begin to enjoy. Another good thing to put into your life, if you haven't done, is healthy food. I know, I sound like your mum, get your vegetables, but actually, again, what we're learning is the way that food affects our brain, and another thing that it does is release some of these healthy chemicals in our brain. There's a couple of, there's a bunch of foods that do that, but a couple of things you might want to Google. If you were to Google tyrosine, which is a kind of types of food, and you'll see a whole list of foods there. They are like the super brain foods, and you'll maybe know one or two, but they're the ones that if you can get some more of that in your diet, it's gonna do some dopamine good. Another thing to think about is slowing right down in your life, in your day, and maybe meditating, or if you're a person of faith, then prayer. That we're discovering that meditation and prayer is not just good for our soul, but it's actually good for our physical brain, the way our brain works. By maybe just stopping, breathing slowly, perhaps listening to some mindfulness stuff or prayer or whatever it is for you that will help you contemplate, that will help you reflect and not just be out there doing the whole time, is going to be good. It gives you a dopamine release. It's going to be good for your brain. We've put some things in the links that can maybe help you in some meditation or in some prayer, so check those out as well. Final one on this list is, again, I'm sounding like your mum, is go to bed early, but sleep is so good for our brains. It's when the cells in our brain and our body repair and renew. Now, you might be going, if only, maybe you've got a little kid in the house. Sleep is just like a distant memory for you right now. And yeah, do what you can, but try to recognize that sleep is important, not only because actually it might be when you're tired, might be one of the times when you're more vulnerable to look at porn, but also sleep is the thing that is going to do good for your brain. I remember reading a thing about a guy who says he loves his lie-ins, but he gets up at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock or something daft in the morning because of his job. So he has lie-ins at the other end of his sleep. In other words, he goes to bed early. We all love the idea of staying in bed for an extra hour, But let's just stick that at the front of our sleep. Let's put that and go to bed a little earlier if lions aren't an option. Let's prioritize sleeping for, yes, our bodies, but particularly our brains. So health. Putting these healthy things in place is going to help you live well, live wisely, and stay porn free during lockdown. Okay, our next tip and our final tip for this video is to do with awareness. Now we're going to go a little bit deep here and quite practical because what this is about is us learning to recognize and respond to the times, the places, the moments when we are pulled into porn. In other words, we need to figure the trigger. Now you might not know what a trigger is. Well, perhaps it's a time of day, maybe late at night when, as I said earlier, you're feeling tired. That's when you're more likely to turn to porn. You just, maybe when you've had a few to drink, maybe that's more of a situation or an environment. Maybe being in your bedroom with the door closed sounds obvious, but that's an environment which means you're more likely to look at porn. Recognizing, first of all, when you look at porn, what's going on, how are you feeling, what time of day is it, is really important. Also, recognizing the emotions that maybe lead to your porn use. Perhaps there's particular people that trigger you because you always have an argument with them or they stress you out. Maybe it's certain, just emotions of like loneliness, for example, which is huge during lockdown. You've recognized that's a trigger for me. When I feel lonely, I turn to porn. Now, once we begin to recognize what those triggers are, then we can begin to respond. But maybe you don't know. So let me just give you just a quick tip. And it's simply this. Next time you feel cravings to look at porn, next time you look at porn, begin to review what happened leading up to that moment or leading up to you starting to crave porn. You know, what time of day was it? What were you feeling? Where were you? And just pay attention. You know, like when you're trying to lose weight and you start counting your calories or you do a food diary. One of the reasons why that's a really sensible thing to do is because it makes us more attentional and we make better choices. But as soon as we start to recognize, as soon as we start to pay attention, it's easier to take action. And so that's the next part, isn't it? It's not just recognizing, but also responding. So what can you do to preempt those moments of temptation? Why fight a battle tomorrow that you can avoid today? Why fight a battle tonight that you can avoid today by deciding that you're not going to take your phone into your bedroom after 8 o'clock at night? Or deciding that when you have an argument with somebody, you're gonna do this healthy thing instead of this unhealthy thing, and actually having a plan about what you'll do. Making some decisions like that are going to be really, really important. What can you avoid? What can you cut out? What can you do practically to avoid those moments you've anticipated? An obvious one, of course, is our behaviors online. You know, what are we looking at? Is there particular Instagram accounts that are just danger for us? Is there particular things online that we do before we go onto a porn site that just cause us problems? Identify those things, delete them, maybe avoid them if you can. Another thing that I want to recommend, and we're going to put a link into this, is maybe think about putting some software on your phone, on your computer, that will help you avoid these things, that will block stuff for you. Now, one that we would recommend, and we're a program that we're kind of affiliated with, is Covenant Eyes. Now, Covenant Eyes is an amazing piece of tech, and what it does is it can block stuff, but also it can just report stuff. So if you've got somebody, and we talked a little bit about this in the other video, if you've got somebody who you're trying to be dangerous, and being dangerously honest with, then Covenant Eyes can send them just a bit of information saying, oh yeah, okay, these websites got blocked, and maybe you want to have a conversation with this person. Now you choose who that goes to, but it's really, really helpful. Now if you've used Covenant Eyes before and it didn't work well for you, check it out, because they've really updated a lot of it. One of the things they now do are screenshots, so it's not just about what you're viewing on your browser, but Instagram and some of that stuff. It also does kind of pixelated screenshots, so that people know what you've been looking at without having to see it. Check it out. We've put a link in the bottom of or in the description underneath this video, and it will maybe be a game changer for you by helping you respond. You've recognized that, you know, scrolling on Instagram, going on certain websites is an issue. It will just help you put those guardrails in place. And so for some of you, that might be an essential decision to make today. Putting something like Covenant Eyes on your phone, on your computer, could be a game changer. Other thing to just say at this point as well is have a plan, not just on what to do to avoid porn use, but what happens if you slip up. We talk about the idea, and we use this term slip because it stands for short lapse in progress. One of the problems that we can have if we mess up with porn is that we can spiral. The shame starts piling on top of us, and we go, well, I've blown it now, and then we can kind of binge, and we can end up just kind of having days and days and days of looking at porn because we think, well, we've already messed up. Thinking about a slip where it's a short lapse in progress is really helpful mindset to have. Okay, maybe you messed up once, but that doesn't mean you are now you can't do it anymore. It just means that you need to have a plan of what you're going to do to get back on the horse and start trying to be, as determined as you have been. And so that's where a plan can be really important. First thing I'd say is if you experience a slip, then don't panic. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you can't do this. It's a short lapse in progress. Regroup a little bit, maybe figure out what went wrong. Was your plan to avoid porn? Is there a gap in that plan? Did you turn off your blockers? Did you, break one of your rules that you set and you took your phone to bed with you? What went wrong? Begin to identify that and think about that, and then use that information to prepare better for next time. Tell somebody you messed up. Again, that can be one of the hardest things to do, but particularly if you've already reached out to somebody and you've told them about your problems in the past, telling them about this will be really key. One, it keeps it out of the shadows. It helps you just stay focused and not hide and cover up. But also that person can just remind you that who you are, what you're doing is the right thing, you're making good choices. Because right now, after a mess up, after a slip, shame gets loud, it shouts. And so you need someone to replace some of the lies of shame and help you recognize who you really are and what you're trying to do. But you also might want to consider, if you find you're slipping up a lot, getting some extra professional support. Maybe you've been doing this on your own with your own willpower, and maybe you just need that extra support, that extra help, those extra tools. And so again, in the links there are some of the programs that we offer, but wherever you go, getting that extra support might be vital. That's it. We've talked a little bit about help. We've talked a little bit about awareness. And there are 2 tips for this video. If you haven't seen the first video, make sure you check it out and you watch that. And number 3 is also on its way. So check that one out. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to maybe even like or comment, because that will help you, but it also will help others as we try to defeat and defend against pornography. See you next time.